Today, Homan claimed that state and local leaders have agreed to better cooperate with ICE and Border Patrol, adding, quote, "The withdrawal of law enforcement resources here is dependent on that city and state cooperation." That's what Tom Homan said. But while we wait to see what that cooperation really looks like on the street and in the jails, we want to start tonight with a historic lack of cooperation in the courtroom, specifically the federal courtrooms. Not from local officials, but from ICE itself in those federal courtrooms. Last night, I started the show with that court order by federal Judge Patrick Schultz, who provided a list of nearly 100 documented violations of court orders by the federal government, all involving the basic right to due process. So we thought that deserved more of a magnifying glass, and Kent took that closer look.
Federal Judge Patrick Schultz didn't just hold back on his ruling yesterday, writing, quote, "ICE has likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence." And he came with receipts attaching a list of 96 court orders that he says ICE violated across 74 cases just this month in Minnesota. Each one involves someone who is detained by ICE with no violent criminal history or apparent immediate orders for removal, and then reportedly denied due process despite a judge's order for ICE to comply. Tonight, I want to quickly highlight just one of those cases. It involves a 19-year-old named Oscar who was ordered released 3 times but was still detained for 19 days.
The South St. Paul community has spent the past 2 weeks rallying around a former Packers student named Oscar, who came to the U.S. from Guatemala in 2021 to seek asylum. And despite following that legal process, graduating high school with straight A's, and even gaining approval to work, court documents allege that he was picked up by ICE at work on January 10th and taken to the Whipple Federal Building. The next day, Oscar's lawyer filed an emergency habeas corpus petition, but before that petition was heard, Oscar was flown out of the state to an ICE facility in El Paso. 4 days later, on January 15th, the judge granted that petition and ordered his release. But that did not happen, and after another 4 days, ICE told the court Oscar was scheduled to return to Minneapolis from El Paso on January 20th. But once again, that did not happen. It turns out he was taken to a different ICE facility in Albuquerque instead, and yet after another court order and another delay, that online fundraiser finally confirmed that Oscar made it home yesterday, 19 days after he was detained.
Again, Oscar's case is just one of 74 where ICE violated court orders that tried to ensure basic due process. In response, Judge Schultz wrote, quote, "This list should give pause to anyone, no matter his or her political beliefs, who cares about the rule of law." And he then added, "The extent of ICE's noncompliance is almost certainly substantially understated." Now, just a few of the attorneys we've spoken to say they'd agree. They've filed, they tell us, more than 1,000 habeas corpus petitions asking for that basic due process. They say nearly all have been granted by judges who are also working overtime right now. But in many cases, people have already been flown out of state, which is where this compliance issue really comes into effect. Jana.
Kent, before we talk a little bit more about the content of your story, I want to talk a little bit about Judge Schultz. He was appointed by George W. Bush, and he even clerked for a conservative Supreme Court justice. So this is not easily thrown into the category as an activist judge with liberal causes.
Right. We've spoken to Tim Johnson, our Supreme Court expert. He says that he was right there for Justice Scalia, clerking for Justice Scalia when he was nominated and then brought up to the Supreme Court. He's got all of the credentials, he says, but DHS in their response to all this have, again, branded him like they often do, a liberal activist judge, which is why this background of him comes into play here.
Right. Well, the proof is in the court documents, and we encourage all of you to look at them, read them, and decide for yourself.